Bonjour, salut, hello everyone. It's approaching the time for the writing exam, so I thought I would do a video about how to write what I'm going to call a solid 150 word answer. Headline thing for this is I'm calling this a solid or a decent answer, which I think is probably in real, brutally honest terms what a lot of you are looking for. So this is definitely not about writing a grade 9 answer or the absolute pinnacle of GCSE French. This will get you a really good, solid, decent answer that, fingers crossed, will get you a good grade that you will be happy with. But I'm really putting a disclaimer in there for you that this is not about getting those top grades. No offence. 150 word question, giving you a really quick overview, although I'm sure you know this really well. You've got 2 bullet points. You don't need to cover them evenly, but obviously they both do need to be covered. It's 32 marks, and you need to have a bigger range of tenses and language than you do in the 90 word question. The key thing here, and I will come back to this again and again, is relevance. Every single thing that you write has got to be relevant to the question at all times. And if the examiner feels as though it's not relevant, unfortunately, it just won't get marked. And you may have seen in bits that I've marked in the past for you, I've written not relevant. I know Mrs. Sharp in particular is brutal about the relevance too. She's like, no, not relevant, not listening. And it's easy to make what you write irrelevant if you just waffle on or start to write things that don't necessarily link, even though it can be about the topic that the question is asking. We'll look at this a bit later on, so I'm not going to go into too much detail on it now, but remember, relevance is key here. Okay, this is just some chats about exam skill. What we're going to actually, overview of this video, I'm going to talk through some exam skill, I'm going to tell you some things to do, as in just do this, just write this, and then I'm going to do a sample answer together. So, top thing on exam skill, take a few minutes to plan. I'm a hypocrite here because I am not a planner. I would be the person who would just launch in, but then it is important to plan. I launch into things because I feel really self-confident about things like this, but there is power in planning. So please take some time to make a plan. What I do though, and I've told you this before, I did this right the way through to the very last exams I did at university, is in those first few minutes of the exam, and this goes for the 90 word question and for the translation, so all of this stuff here will help you for all of them. And I used to do this with everything. I used to memorise things, and in the first few minutes of the exam I would just write them out. I'd go to the back of the exam paper, or I would get some spare paper and I would just write these out, and then I had that thing in front of me for the rest of the exam. And that's really important. So write out the modal verb, write out some of the verb phrases. I've given you a list of them, but I'm not going to say write them all out, but some of them, or some of the ones that you're a bit more unsure of, or the ones that you think if in the moment, it'd be quicker just to check on a sheet than try and remember them and get them wrong. And then write out dimensions as well, which we'll look at a bit later on. Big thing for you here is make a good choice. This is before you've even started, and to an extent this goes for the 90 word question as well. Make a good choice. There is not a correct answer to this question. The examiner's not sitting there with an exact replica of what you should write. In that respect, it's a little bit perhaps like English or those type of subject where the things are a bit more subjective and it's down to your expression as a person. Obviously, there are things that you need to do within the mark scheme, but just keep in mind that there is no right or correct answer to this, which influences you making a good choice. You'll have a choice of 3 questions. Please choose the question that you can answer in a really broad and generalised way. And I'm going to show you what I mean by this with 2 examples of question here. So let's just imagine that you had these 2. There'd be a third one there as well, but I just did 2 as a demonstration. So first one comes from theme 1, blah blah blah. It's talking about l'importance d'une vie active, un événement sportif récent. And then for theme 3, you've got les aspects positifs et négatifs des devoirs, une visite scolaire mémorable. Now, what a lot of you do and have done in the past is you jump on the thing that you think that you've got more to say about. And in this case, you jump on this word devoir. So you're like, all right, yeah, it's about homework. Got loads to say about homework. I'm going to answer this question. Actually, this is a really narrow question, because what really can you say about devoir? Remembering that we need to be writing around about 75-ish words for this bullet point. So what I'm telling you, and I can't force you to do it, but in making a good choice, you need to look for the thing that's got the biggest breadth of different stuff that you could refer to make your life easier. So actually, we've got here d'une vie active. Now that might not jump out at you immediately as something that you think you can answer because you know the word devoir really well, but d'une vie active, if we know that vie means life, so it's just asking about the importance of an active life or an active lifestyle. And really, that is so broad and open-ended that there's lots and lots and lots of things that you could put in that question. The answer to that is much, much easier than writing a really narrow thing about homework, because truthfully, yes, you may have opinions on it, but how much have you got to say about homework? How much can you write in French about that? So please make a good choice and look for the question that is more open-ended, and it may not be the most obvious one, but look for the question that's the most open-ended, because that is the easiest way to do it. Okay, really brutal here. Do not write what comes into your head. The days of you saying, put your hand up, Sir, how do you say this? Sir, what's that? Over and gone. Do not try to make things up. Don't fall down the hole of trying to say what you want to say. You absolutely, positively must, and I'm not like even being melodramatic with this, you must write what you know, as in, what can you write and say in French? Doesn't have to be the truth in the nicest possible way. The examiner doesn't care, does not give a stuff about you, your true opinions of anything. You've just got to write an answer that is, as I've used the word, a good, solid, decent answer. People mess up the 150-word answer because they try to write what they want to say, they can't do it, and it all just becomes an absolute tangle of things. So you honestly, truthfully must not write what comes in your head. Do not make things up. Use the French that you know. Remembering, as I've said, this is an answer that there isn't a correct answer to. The stuff that you know is valid. If it's accurate and it's sophisticated, it's valid, and that is a valid answer to this question. Okay? Now, this is a big headlining thing for the relevance question. So, the most difficult thing here is that people write stuff and it can be the best French that you've ever written, but if it's not relevant, it does not count towards the answer. The biggest issue that people have here is that they just start writing things, but they don't make an explicit reference to what the bullet points are asking you to do. Please keep just flickering in your head as you're doing this. Is this relevant? Is this relevant? But have you made it relevant? I'm going to write this as a note. You make it relevant. And I'm going to show you what I mean by this in a second. All right? You have got to make it relevant. You've got to tell the examiner that it fits with what the question wants you to do. And this is where I'm saying it's easier than you think. Starting with the opinions bullets, so you're going to have one bullet that's going to generally be about opinions, and there are perhaps 3 different styles that come up commonly. I'm waiting for the day that they throw in just a random style that they've just thought up, but for now, generally, there are 3 different types of opinion bullet that you may get. Remember, always do positives and negatives, even if the bullet doesn't appear to explicitly ask you that. As in the example of this importance. So you sometimes get ones that are, what's the importance of this? So what's the importance of homework? What's the importance of technology? What's the importance of family? What's the importance of friendship? What's the importance of marriage? What's the importance of holidays? Although that's not going to be in this exam. What's the importance of blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And then on face value, they're not actually being explicit about what they're wanting you to do, because importance actually can work in both ways. It could be a positive and it could be a negative. So all I'm telling you, and I will emphasize telling you, if you get an importance question, you start your first section with this. What is important for me is, you write that bit, you write your other bits and pieces. Once you've done that, about 35 words, once you've done that, you're moving on and you're saying, but on the other hand, what isn't important is this. And if you include those two things either side of your first bullet point section, you are making everything you say 100% relevant, because you've used this here and said that this relates back to the importance that is referenced in the question. These tend to be a little bit easier actually, but honestly, just use these phrases. Learn them off by heart, write them out at the beginning of the exam so you've got them there, and then you can just use them and slot them in. Other types of opinion bullet that you get are actually a little bit easier on face value. So, and I've just noticed I've made a mistake on this, never mind. We've got advantages and disadvantages question. So that'll be what the advantages and disadvantages are. Blah, blah, blah. Start off with this, write your description, then continue with the second thing, contrasting the two. Positive and negative questions, exactly the same thing really, and I've just switched and swapped. I've just swapped out the advantage and the disadvantage for positive and negative, although here I have just repeated positive, so it's just going to be negative. Sorry about that. So again, learn them, write them out at the beginning, or even you could look at the question first, decide which one you're going to do, then write them out. It's up to you. Use these to begin each section, and you know what? That is often the most difficult part of any question in any exam, any extended piece of writing. Sometimes just getting started is the most difficult thing, and these are foolproof. They will get you started. They'll make everything you write absolutely relevant. Okay, so learn those. End of story. Right, next thing, still keeping the idea of relevance in there. The past or the future tense bullet, the other bullet that you get will be pushing you towards either answering in the past or answering in the future. So you need to watch out for that. First off, very similar to the 90-word question, you need to be looking for the trigger words. So we're not talking about the relevance yet, but this is just you being able to work out the two. Generally, you will have things like récent, récemment, dans le passé, dernier, all those kind of words that are quite obviously talking about the past. But definitely watch out for these two, which you'll have seen before, mémorable and then spécial. These are other triggers that are telling you that the thing that you're writing has to be in the past. In terms of relevance, I've done this in big caps. I don't like using capital letters actually, but I've used them a lot in this this video. You need to tell the examiner that you think that thing was memorable or special, even though it may be really, really boring and really, really dull. So all you're going to use to do this is easy little phrase, qui était, and that's actually ticking off one of the things that we'll look at later, subordinate clause. So qui était, and mémorable, and then spécial, even if it is the most dull thing that you can ever imagine. So down here, we're talking about going to the cinema. Récemment, je suis allé au cinéma qui était mémorable parce que. So you went to cinema. There are others I've seen. We looked at a past question where someone they went for a really special trip to the shops, or they went on a memorable visit to the shopping centre. You tell the examiner that you think it's special or memorable, and this is where your relevance is just ticked off and you don't have to worry about it. If you just write a really generic answer about something that you did, it can be totally correct, it can be absolutely perfect, but unfortunately you're not hitting that relevance thing. Okay, so really, really important there. Future tense. Again, other triggers that you'll be used to, but in the 150 you often get, you might get these in the 90 as well, idéal or rêve. So rêve in particular is meaning dream, your dream thing. And specifically, these are actually pushing you to write in the conditional about what that thing would be like or would look like. Again, tell the examiner that this is your dream or that this is your ideal thing, even if it is really, really, really dull. Ideal partner comes up now and again. You know, describe the most bland person you could think of, but if you tell the examiner that it's an ideal person, it's absolutely fine. And I'm just, honestly, as I said, we're writing a solid answer here. This is your starting phrase. Mon something idéal serait, mon something de rêve serait. So you could say my dream partner, mon partenaire de rêve serait, and then mon, I don't know, mon emploi, my ideal job. I've just done those with mon. If you know enough with your gender to do ma, if it's a feminine thing, then brilliant. But as I say, for this is about shaping your answer without thinking too much about gender and things like that. So if you can do it, brilliant. But let's just keep it really, really, really solid and making those links between the answer and what the mark scheme needs you to do. Super. Right, moving on. What you also need to consider, so although the question pushes you to answer just in one tense, you still need to be able to write in multiple tenses. So you need to keep that idea in your head. Something that I know other classes have done in the past is that they've just decided, oh, well, do you know what, I can just write a bit of something in every different tense and it'll be absolutely fine. Again, that's not relevant. That is where your relevance can fall apart. The easiest way that I'm going to suggest to do both of these things, so first off, get the tenses in the first place, but then also keep what you're saying relevant, because irrespective of what it is you're talking about, it still needs to be relevant to the question, is to do a little bit of a contrast between the two things and make that link and that connection really, really explicit. So, if you get a past tense bullet point, so something you've done recently or memorable or spécial or something like that, all that you're going to do, and it doesn't have to be for a massive number of words, you are going to suggest a future change or just some kind of suggestion about what you did that would be different in the future if you did that thing again. And I'll repeat it. You are just going to use this little phrase here. It was good, but what I would change is, and then you will continue talking in the future tense. The link is completely relevant because you're talking specifically about the thing that you'd already done, and it's also introducing those other tenses. So just use that phrase to introduce your contrast. Same thing but the other way around, and what we're going to do here with the future, so if you get a future tense question, so if it's dream job, dream house, dream anything, whatever, use the past to refer to something that you've seen or you've experienced or that you've done that actually now supports the future view that you've got. So example that I always pops into my head, if a question is asking about a dream house, at some point you're going to say in the past you've seen or you've visited or you've been to something or somewhere which supports your view. So I've got this little suggestion here. My dream house would be really expensive because in the past I visited, so we've got j'ai visité, we've got dans le passé, and then we'll continue on with the other things. And that's just adding in that tense, it's making it completely relevant to the question, and it's doing actually in quite a nice, stylish way as well. Okay, last little thing. So you must include opinion. You do this anyway, so this isn't one of my big concern, but remember that you need to do it. You need to make at least two fully justified, or sometimes they call it explained, opinions. So you can't just say, I love, you have to say, I love this because da 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 da, or I thought this because of blah, 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 blah. Again, you do that really, really naturally, so it's not too much of a thing to worry about, but remember, it's part of the picture and it's part of the things that you need to include. Remember what you really did well on this in speaking exam. Use your modifiers, so very, really, quite, absolutely, extremely, and then stack up those reasons. Don't just say it was fun, say it was really fun, quite entertaining, and really, really memorable. There you go. Try and do 3 per thing, and this will also help with your word count as well. Other thing to keep in mind, and again, you're really good at this, keep the answers generic and transferable. Expensive is a really good one to use. You can describe most things as being expensive. Waste of time. Anything could be a waste of time. Waste of money. Again, same thing. And then the more straightforward ones, amusing, fun, all that kind of thing. Brilliant. Right, moving on then. So, answering the question, what we're going to do, I'm going to just do some of the planning steps for you as well, and then we're going to write out the answer together. So we're going to imagine that this is the full exam process, and we'll come up, I'm going to show you how to write, as I say, this really, really solid answer. So, okay, lovely. So here's our question. I've made a slight tweak from the one we saw earlier. So we decided to do this one. We've got first bullet, l'importance. So that's telling us instantly that we need to be much more aware of including the negative aspect to it rather than it just being purely positive. And then the second bullet point, un événement sportif mémorable. And I've changed that word because the other one I've done récent, but we're going to do this as mémorable. So we've got two things there, fairly straightforward. I don't think it's going to cause us too much of a problem. We've picked this one, remember, because this bit is really general. That's opened it up to us for all to talk about anything to do with sports and activities and all that kind of thing. Lovely. So, beginning of the exam. This is for the 90 word and the translation and everything else. Do this in the first 4 or 5 minutes. If you use that time, it's time gained and time saved, because what you don't have to do is sit and think about these things. You've just got them there and you can transfer them across, and you can use your thinking time to think of other things. So first job, we're going to just write out jouer. So this is our model verb, regular ER verb. It's going to follow the pattern. It's going to do everything that we would expect it to do. I've just done it in the je form there. In some revision materials that I've given you, I've included the nous form as well. So you make a punt at how you want to do it. You make that decision. Next thing are the verb phrases. Now, what I'm going to say here is you don't necessarily need to write everything down. What you do need to write down are the things that you know you may get wrong or the things that you would find most difficult. I'm going to tell everyone the first verb phrase that you write down in this exam is je suis allé. For I went, so we're going to have that. And then you think, what am I not sure about? I would probably say il y avait is one that's very useful, but people would forget. So there was, or it could be were. And another little suggestion, you could also put in the will future of this. So il y aura, there will be. And one other thing that I think is important that people get a bit tangled up on is probably j'irai, for I will go. You could put a little bracketed S on the end and remind yourself that that then means I would go, but other things need to be met to do that. So use some time, write down a few little verb phrases that you've got so that you know that they're there, so that you can remember them. You might want to do as well, ce serait. I think you know c'était really well. I think you know ce sera really well. But this is it would be. So you may need that later on as well. So you make a decision over it. Okay, so this is dimensions, which we've seen before. Really slimmed down version here. So I've typed it out because I was going to write it by hand, but it would just take too long. So you've got a choice. You can write out dimensions. You may be able to just get away probably with just the letters. You don't necessarily need to write out the full things. If it were me, I would remember dimensions and then I'd remember the thing that I actually need rather than the descriptions of the names. So DOPS, let's just go with a couple of options. So let's just do, in case we need it, je l'adore. Oh, I can't even write. Je l'adore. Je l'adore. And we'll do a past tense one. Je l'ai détesté, because we might want to use that later on. So there's our two options. Right, infinitive constructions, there's millions and millions of these, lots of them for perhaps some higher level answers. Here, all we're going to have is a fin de, and we'll put in pour as well, both meaning the same thing. It's that idea of in order to do whatever it is. Modal verbs, again, lots of options, lots of potential things that we could use. I'm going to put down il faut, thinking of the answer, the question that we've got about sport, we could say things that you have to do. So I'm going to put il faut and I'm going to put on doit, and that's probably going to be the only two that I'll use. Exciting stuff. You will need your own thing here. Loads and loads of options. This really is one little thing that's really, really complicated, really, really high level, really, really interesting, really, really stands out. So I'm going to use this one, bien que ce soit. Not that interesting in English. Do the E. Oh my God. Not that interesting in English, but in French, it's really, really complicated. So bien que ce soit just means although it is. And it's got subjunctive in there. It's really, really hard. So that's going to be my exciting thing. Plus, I'm going to take one of my favourite little explanations, quelle blague, what a joke, and see if we can stick that in somewhere too. Right, negatives. So we've got ne, probably ne pas, and then maybe thinking again the sporting aspect, ne jamais. So just a simple negative, ne pas, and then maybe say something with never. Okay, C clauses, again, loads and loads of options. This is just when you have C followed by one little section, which then is followed by something else. So if I did this, then this would happen, or if I were to do this and whatever else. And I think I'm just going to put in here a really short and easy one. Si je pourrais, if I could. So if I could. Sophisticated opinions, loads and loads of options here. I'm going to put, let's put with ce qui me rend, and then maybe we can add in there triste or heureux. So what makes me, ce qui me rend triste, ce qui me rend heureux. I can add that in when I write the answer. And then I think I'll do a little ce qui m'énerve, ce qui m'énerve. And then I'm going to do, what else will I do? That'll probably it, that'll be fine. Narration, let's do premièrement, firstly, puis, and then maybe finalement, we might use that at the end just to sum up. And then subordinate clauses, we're just going to do a couple of easy ones. So introduce it with qui. So qui est, we might do qui sont, and then we'll probably have to do qui était, which we said earlier from the mémorable. Okay, so that's dimensions. I know other people may be watching this. If your teacher gives you something else, I know there's things like Captain Cods or something, I don't know what it is. Pirate Cods, is it? Something like that. The Queen eats blueberry cakes and things like this. There'll be different things that your teacher's got. Use what your teacher suggested. This is just one suggestion for me. But again, we're thinking of it being a really solid and decent answer. These are not by any means the most jazzy, fancy things that you could use. But this, if you use these, it will get you a really, really decent and solid answer. Right, time for some hypocrisy now. So as I've said, I'm not one of life's planners, but for the purposes of this, we're going to just sketch out a plan quite quickly. I'm going to do the plan in English as well, so I'm not going to take in here as anything that I'm going to use. I'm just going to sketch out the plan really simply. I may make one or two comments if there's something that I can remember, but overall, I'm going to just sketch it out in English. So, bullet point 1 is asking us to talk about the importance of active lifestyle. So I'm just going to put active life. So my question 1A, remembering that its importance, this is going to be my positive. That looks like la, doesn't it? This is going to be my positive. And what can we say for here? By the way, I'm just making this up as I do it. I've not planned ahead. I'm just thinking of it on the spot. So it's an obvious thing, good for your health. Let's say, I remember the word for heart. So let's do that. Good for the body and the heart. That does say cœur. It doesn't look like it. Another aspect that we can put in, what's another important thing of living an active lifestyle? This is good because it's opened up anything that we think of. Let's do a social side. So friends, specifically from team sports. So we'll make some reference to that. And that I think would be more than enough for 1A. For 1B, so this is the second section, we're going to obviously do the negatives now. And what can we say here? Easy one to get us out of any sticky situation. Expensive. We might say something about the clothes. My mind's going there straight away, but then you might do something about the gym. Obviously, gym memberships are expensive too. I think we'll probably have enough in there for everything. But in case, let's just get in our head the idea that sports might be dangerous. That could be something else to consider. Brilliant. So that's bullet 1 done. Bullet 2 then is memorable sports event. And again, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to break them into 2. So 2A, let's say we went to rugby with, that's my little meaning with, let's say we went with our friends, and we're going to get in some opinions here. We're going to say it was bad, so I'm going to put an X there just to remind me that it was bad. And the reasons that we'll give, let's say the transport was rubbish, say it was late or something like that, and we'll then say the team lost. I can remember the word for lost. So lost. Again, just a couple of little notes. I'm not writing loads out in French. So the team lost, and that was why you were upset about it. 2B is going to be future change, and always the easy thing to do. Any answer near enough. Let's just say we want better food at the stadium because it's rubbish. Okay, so there's our plan just sketched out. Referring back to that, I'm not technological enough to jump back between all the different things, but you have all this stuff now to refer backwards and forwards to. You might use it, you might not use it. I'm going to write the answer now. I might not use it either. But you can flip back between all these different things because you've already got them written down in front of you so that it makes your life easier. If you think of something else, wonderful, but you've got these things there ready to use. Okay then, so we're going to start doing our answer. I'll say again, I've not planned this out. I'm just doing this absolutely off the cuff, having done those few planning steps. So we're doing an importance question. So we're going to start with our little opening phrase, ce qui. So ce qui est important pour moi, c'est. Now, what we need to just throw in here is que, because we want to make a comment about sport in general. So what's important for me is that sport, c'est que le sport est, let's put in physical activity, l'activité physique. It's nearly the same as English, which is the other way around as well. Now, because we said 2 things, we said sport and physical activity, we need to follow here with are, which is going to be sont. And what can we say next? The things that we'd said in our plan, really good for your health. Bon pour la santé. Now, I'm a stickler for precision. If you didn't do this in the exam, you're not going to lose a mark for it, but I need an S here because we're talking about 2 things. So, vraiment bon pour la santé. And, nice little word here, surtout, especially. And then we said we would put in the word for heart, le cœur. Brilliant. So there's the first little opening section. Let's continue with en plus. So additionally, what could we say now? We'd say something about team sports. So les sports d'équipe. So team sports, and then let's give a couple of examples. So comme, like, le foot. Now we could put and in here, but I'm going to put or. And we're going to talk about hockey. We're going to talk about rugby later on, so I'm going to put hockey here. So le hockey. And again, because we've talked about sports in general, we need to say are. So brilliant. So additionally, team sports like football or hockey are, and then we'll put in useful. So rather than just useful, we'll put quite useful. Utile. And again, I'm going to add that S on the end because we're talking about something that's plural. And probably the first little thing coming, one of the other things, well, we've done a ce qui thing, but coming from dimensions, we are now going to just drop in an afin de, so in order to, so they're useful, in order to, and to meet is rencontrer des amis. Actually, let's not do des amis, let's do, get rid of that, let's do de nouveaux amis, new friends. We'll put X on the end, but again, if you don't do that in the exam, we will be able to live with it. De nouveaux amis. Lovely, that's really, really nice. Then we're coming in with our other aspect, so our set phrase, mais de l'autre côté, that isn't E. I really struggle to do the letter E on here. There we go. Ce qui est moins, we're not saying moins, we could do, ce qui est, oh, I've done this wrong, haven't I? Silly. So, ce qui, see, we all make little slips, ce qui n'est pas important, and we said we would open this by talking about the cost of things. So, ce qui n'est pas important, c'est le prix, the price. And then I'm going to just do a full stop there because the next bit I'm going to write as a separate sentence with some more justification. So, ce qui me rend triste. Let's do a double E. So this is from dimensions. We're taking in these sophisticated opinions. So, ce qui me rend triste and ce qui m'énerve. So it makes you sad and it annoys you. Ce qui me rend triste et ce qui m'énerve, c'est, so, c'est que les vêtements, so the clothes, we said we would talk about clothes. Again, see what I'm doing here? I'm putting in these really general, generic things that could apply to anything. You could talk about this with school, you could talk about this with the job, you could talk about this with it's not in the exam, but holidays, anything. Really, 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 things like clothes, food, all that kind of stuff that cuts across all aspects of life are really, really handy to use. So again, I'm talking about clothes, so it needs to be sont, and we want to say expensive, so we need cher. However, let's say too expensive, so trop cher, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to put an S on the end of this too, because we're talking about clothes. And little phrase that we hopefully know, for, so pour, and then tout le monde, everyone. Tout le monde. Now, I'm going to go back to my dimensions, and I'm going to, I think in here what would fit nicely is my exciting stuff phrase. So I'm going to put bien que ce soit, so although it is, essential, so essentiel, it's nearly the same as English, which I think you'd agree with. So clothes are expensive, even though they're essential, because you need the right kind of gear. Then, thinking back to dimensions again, I'm going to put a modal in at this point. I think we're finished on this section now, more or less. I'm going to pop a modal in here, so I'm going to go with on doit. Could have done il faut, but I think on doit is okay. So, on doit avoir, so you must have, or one must have, a lot of money, beaucoup d'argent. And guess what? Something else in dimensions. I'm going to throw in my little quelle blague. What a joke. What a joke. And then that's just done in that section. So you have to have a lot of money. What a joke. Really nice way to finish it off. Then we're ready to move on to the next section now. So past tense bullet, we need to talk about a memorable sporting event that we have been to. So let's start with, remember, time markers are key. Let's do recently. So récemment. Let's double it up so we're making it really, really clear that we're talking in the past. La semaine dernière. So recently, last week, you can double them up like this. It's really, really fine. Je suis allé. So we're taking that from our little verb sheet that we'd had earlier. So recently, last week, je suis allé. It looks like I've got an accent on that, but I don't. It's just my writing. Je suis allé to the stadium, au stade, with my friends, avec... Now, let's say three friends, avec mes trois amis. Avec mes trois amis. I'm going to pick this off actually because we've said ami earlier on about making friends, new friends. So why don't we, just to try and put a bit of difference in, why don't we say copains? Some of you might want to put avec les mecs, but you never know. And we now need to say in order to. So rather than doing afin de, we'll use pour. So in order to see, voir un match de rugby. So we know this, we've seen this a few times. Match of rugby, teacher of French. You need to do it in that sequence. You can't say rugby match. You have to say match of rugby. And then we need at this point to tell the examiner that it was memorable. So qui était, and we'll just do mémorable. Now, that's really, really nice. We've done a good job there. Now, what I think we should throw in here is just a generic, quite basic opinion describing what we think about rugby. So just present tense, nothing too fancy. So let's say le rugby. Basically, rugby is my favourite sport. So le rugby, c'est mon sport préféré. And we need to say why. So we've given an opinion there, so your favourite sport. Let's put in a sophisticated connective, so rather than just saying car or something, étant donné, so given that, so étant donné que, it's, and what can we say? Exciting, so très passionnant, double N. Now, remember, we need to stack those answers up. So rather than just giving one, let's give something else. We'll just do two rather than three. We're doing really well for words here, by the way. So, c'est très passionnant et, let's say, extremely, extrêmement, entertaining, divertissant. Brilliant. So we've just put a little thing in there, nice little opinion, justified. We've ticked that off. We've done it earlier actually with opinions as well. We said ce qui me rend triste, ce qui, I can't remember what we said, ce qui m'énerve. So we've done our opinions with little justifications as well, but we've done that job now and that's ticked off. Right, to continue then, what we are going to say though now is we're going to put in a negative because we're going to say things didn't quite go to plan on the day. So this, we're saying we love rugby, it's our favourite sport. However, so we can just do nice and simple, cependant, however, why not go in with unfortunately, malheureusement, this is our, back to our dimensions, I hated it, je l'ai détesté, je l'ai détesté, exclamation mark. Then, let's just sequence our events. So, firstly, premièrement, we got the bus. Now, I'm going to put something in here. I've said got, there isn't a word in French for got. You're more likely to take the bus. So we know take as prendre. This is a nice way to demonstrate your knowledge of some irregular verbs. So we need to put the perfect tense of prendre, which is not really going to follow the pattern fully. So we can do nous avons, and our past participle is going to be pris. So we took the bus, same as in English, le bus. Then we're going to say the bus was late. Mais c'était en retard. And then we're going to put in a couple of bits more of narration. So then, why don't we do it all just in one go? Puis, finalement, and we want to say the team lost. So, l'équipe. Now, we'd already had that we knew the word perdu. We're going to treat the word for team as if it were like he or she or it, and we need a little at in there. So we've actually now used some nice past participles here. We've got a pris in an irregular one, and then we've taken perdu in a RE verb with a U ending. So there's, as much as you might know these, not be a bit not really sure about these words, there's some really, really nice vocab here. Really, really, really good. That's us done. I'm going to put an exclamation mark at the end of this too, although I don't really like to use them, but that's there. And then the last little job that we need is we need to make our contrast with what we would do differently in the future, or what we would like to be different. So I'm going to use here my si clause. So si je. So if I, and then we'd had pourrais, if I could. And then we're going to come in with our set phrase that we'd had from before, ce que je changerais. So what I would change is, and we'd say we would talk about the food, la nourriture, I said that a bit weirdly. So c'est la nourriture, vu que, and then let's put in my opinion, à mon avis. And we're going to talk about what the food's like currently. So let's just say it's, and which modify a bit, and peu, disgusting, easy word for lots of scenarios, dégoûtant, it's a bit disgusting and quite unhealthy, malsain. And then let's put in what you would like to happen. So, j'aimerais. So, I would like to eat. So, j'aimerais manger un repas. Now, what I think we should just do here is make it really clear that we're still talking about the sporting event. So, let's just put au stade, so at the stadium, just to make it really, really clear that that's what we're talking about. Qui est, which is, and again, what's coming to mind? Rich in protein. Remember, the examiner doesn't care, as long as it's good French. Riche en protéines. So rich in protein. Parce que, let's do a justification. Parce que it's, the letter E really struggles on this. It's good for the body. C'est bon pour le corps. Super. And there's our answer done. So all done. I'm going to just throw in, I think that's a bit longer than 150. It doesn't matter really. Make sure you're not going on ridiculously long. Ditto other way around, make sure it's not too short. But we've got there a really, really good, solid answer. Ticks off all those boxes of dimensions. It ticks off all of the things in terms of relevance. Every single point is linked really explicitly and directly back to the question. But remember, that's down to you to tell the examiner that you think what it is. It doesn't have to be anything wild or crazy. It can be really basic, but you are telling the examiner what you want it to be. Everything's accurate there, obviously, I mean, no offence, everything is accurate there. Probably the only thing to take from this is, obviously, you're in control of your own vocab. You need to shape this around the things and the phrases that you know really, 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 really well. Look at this and think, yeah, do you know what? I need to make a list of some reasons. I need to know that I'm going to use those ones. The verb phrases, let's just say, do you know what? Whatever the answer is, I'm going to say that I lost something. I'm going to say that something was lost. I'm going to say that I took the bus and talk about transport. Obviously, as well, this is just one type of question. If you get a future tense question, that's going to be different. But again, you can see here how I've just slotted those phrases in. Learn the set phrases, learn the little verb star, learn dimensions, and you'll be in a really, really good position to do very well on this question. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.